Helen, thanks for joining us on The World Now. We're beginning from the Middle East, where Israel's Security Cabinet has approved an expanded military operation in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the population of the enclave will be displaced to the south before the operation. The cabinet voted on Sunday on the expansion of military operations in Gaza hours after the military said it will mobilize thousands of reservists to strengthen its capacity to operate in the Palestinian territory. We have more details in this report.
A senior Israeli security official says the operation in Gaza, called Gideon's Chariots, was unanimously approved by the Security Cabinet with the aim of subduing Hamas and securing the release of all hostages. The security official adds that the plan would be implemented after the U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the Middle East next week to pave way for a hostage deal. He says if no deal is reached, Israel's operation will begin with full force. The Israeli government's plan is to displace Gaza's entire population to the southern part of the enclave, after which the total blockade of humanitarian aid could be lifted. Prime Minister Netanyahu says the movement of the Gaza population is to protect them amidst the intensified military operation. According to the Israeli military's top spokesman, Brigadier General Efi Defrin, the return of Israeli hostages by Hamas is the greatest goal for the new military operation in Gaza. The families of the hostages do not agree. They are accusing the Israeli government of prioritizing the defeat of Hamas over securing a peace deal. Reacting to whether or not the U.S. approves the new Israeli military operation plan, the U.S. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes says President Trump had made it clear that Hamas would face consequences if it continues to hold back hostages, including an American, Edan Alexander, and the bodies of 4 other Americans. The UN has expressed concern over Israel's latest military operation expansion plan, saying it would lead to more civilians being killed.
And as the war lingers, Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are eager to secure a single meal that barely meets their daily needs. It's now the 9th week of Gaza being blocked from getting humanitarian resources and also commercial shipment by Israel, after delivering its remaining foodstuff to hot meal kitchens being supported by it on Fridays. The World Food Programme says it has completely run out of food supplies in the Gaza Strip, warning of a worsening food security crisis and widespread famine across the enclave. For 9 weeks now, no food or commercial shipments have entered Gaza. This marks Israel's longest closure of border crossings in several years. Palestinians now stand in long lines outside charity soup kitchens, hoping to secure a single meal that barely meets their daily nutritional needs. The World Food Programme says Gaza has reached a breaking point. And for more on Israel's plans on expansion of its military operation in Gaza, I'm joined by Global Affairs Analyst AGK Opa from Texas in the United States. Good to have you join us. We're hearing very strong words from Israel on its expansion plan, a conquest, capture, and also the seizure of the entire territory. How significant do you think these words are? Some still hope for an end to this war.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is a conflict that, when it started about three or so years ago, we thought it was going to end in a matter of weeks, but now here we are. Many lives have been lost and property is destroyed, and we still don't know what's going to happen to bring it to an end. Israel wants to, they want to occupy Gaza, and then they think by doing so they're going to have a security for their own people. But in the process of doing that, you look at all the lives that have been lost, women and children. And it makes you wonder, what is the leadership of the world global organizations such as the UN and then EU EU and all the superpowers, are they not watching the same video you and I are watching? And doesn't this, kind of touch their hearts to say, hey guys, we can't continue doing this? And, if it's the two parties as a solution that everybody's talked about, some even have won a Nobel Prize on, why in 21st century are we having this sort of stuff? It doesn't look good. It looks bad on everybody, from the US to the UN to everybody who say they are part of the global leadership. Israel has to give up something, Palestinians have to give up something, but giving up those things shouldn't be by where you are displacing people who have claimed a particular part of the world as their homeland. I mean, who wants to be displaced from their homeland? It is not fair, but again, I'm an individual offering my views. It shouldn't be, and it's very sad.
I mean, the concern about the safety of civilians, especially with this latest, expansion, is a big issue. We see the Prime Minister saying that Palestinians currently living there will be relocated for their own safety. But do you really trust the idea to handle this in a responsible manner, considering the past allegations that we've had?
Well, how are you going to relocate and move people, millions? You're not talking about a few families. You're talking about an entire, section of the country. Right. How are you going to move them? I mean, you're going to move them in a week, in a day, and what is the psychological impact? What is the damage after the fact of moving people from a place they have claimed to be their home? It's not just having the war. If and when this war ends, what are the scars of the war? Well, this is what you're going to see children today that are 5 or 7 years old, and when they are 10 or 20 and they remember what happened to their family, they're going to get angry, and then they're going to get back into the war and start to harm somebody. So I'm just saying, how can we have a peaceful coexistence? They said, the golden rule of thy neighbor. I just don't understand why the Israelis and the Palestinians don't love themselves. I mean, if this is the place they call the Holy Land, where Jesus was born and raised and died, how come Jesus hasn't sent a text message to the heart of these men and women and say, hey, stop this? This is not necessary. But again, it's a question that nobody has an answer for except the military thing that is going on, and those who have the bigger power are going to oppress those who don't have anything.
I mean, there is a concern about how many Israelis are still in support of the Prime Minister's decision. Israel's aim in all of this has been really clear: to destroy Hamas and also secure the release of these hostages. But how possible is it for Netanyahu to sell this latest expansion to the domestic audience? Because we see there's still a large amount of the population asking for an end to the war. I think some will prefer that they just release the hostages and they end the war once and for all.
Before this conflict started, was being investigated for corruption. So he has to hang on to something that will keep him in the eye of the media, overlooking what his own personal political failures have been. And that's what he's doing. Because he knows if he's no longer prime minister, somebody's going to try and grab him and take him before the world court. So he's going to do whatever he's doing. And then if he's going to make some outlandish statement, to keep his fan base, solidified behind him, he was going to do it. But, at the end of the day, he's still going to leave that office. How he's going to leave the office, nobody knows. But a lot of Israelis, are not happy with this because they too are in jeopardy. They get attacked, any chance people have, they're going to attack them. And because they say, hey, this is what your prime minister is doing. So everybody, every Jew, every Israeli is endangered if they are attacked inside Israel or they are attacked outside Israel. So, but do they have the will to go back and say, Mr. Prime Minister, enough of this? You have made your point, you have proven your case, we need to end this thing some kind of way so that we can move on. But he knows that his ego is larger than what he's trying to do, and he's going to hang on to it. That's what happens when we had Hitler do what Hitler did. People were around him and they kept quiet. Every war that has ever happened in the human race is about ego. It has nothing to do with anything, and they are able to convince people around them to support them. And that's the very unfortunate thing. One head bigger than millions of heads. So
some still blame Israel, blame the United States rather, President Trump to be specific, for what is going on. We've seen Israeli officials saying that there is a possible window of opportunity during Donald Trump's visit to the region next week. But how much of an expectation will that be?
You know, hey, look, we have our own crisis in America. We have social issues. We have a lot of things that our President Trump is facing. And he's just one man. He gets 24 hours in a day, just like everybody. Again, this is what, goes back to conflict. Anytime you inject a third party, it's going to escalate. So if Trump, hopefully, if he goes there next week, makes a statement, maybe we'll bring peace. But remember, we still have the Ukraine-Russian thing going on. We have the things going on in Africa. And everybody's looking up to America for a solution. America is not going to be the policeman of the world. We may take sides, but taking that side may harm the other side. So it behooves the people to do what? Come back to themselves and look themselves in the face. I said, hey, when the president of America comes back to America, we're still going to be the one facing all this anguish. And so we have to love thy neighbor. I'm about love thy neighbor before you love thy region.
But how does this, impact on the image of, international organizations like the UN, who are meant to, interfere in this situation in terms of, addressing the humanitarian situation there? There's a lot of suffering going on. How does this impact on their image? At this point, they are meant to come to the fore to address issues, the humanitarian concerns, and the welfare of citizens there.
Well, yeah, again, I'm not a fan of the UN. I mean, it's a toothless bulldog. They are only effective maybe in developing countries where, like what's going on in Congo, they have a peacekeeping force there for decades. Nobody's ever said anything. Israel said, we don't want the UN. And then they're not going to go there. So what the UN is going to do, the UN is just going to make the statement they usually do. And who is behind the UN? Who is the biggest financial supporter of UN? It's US. So they can't afford to, say what they really mean or what they have in mind, because the US might pull their money. And, money talks. He who pays the piper dictates the tone. So UN don't have any fighting force. You're just going to have a bunch of people who put on the blue helmet and walk around, but they don't do nothing. Again, you have to get your house in order before, so that somebody else don't come in there and destroy that. The Palestinians and the Israelis have to come to terms about what it is that is provoking them to do this stuff and come to some solution. If not, nothing UN will do. We will do anything, or US or European Union. We're still going to be having this bloodshed and the destruction of property. But one other thing you have to know: once this war is over, there's going to be a ton of money to be made, because those places have to be rebuilt. So, war, in a way, is a business. It's just that most people who have a moral thing against it don't understand it. It's a business. Somebody's selling some arms, somebody's selling some food, but at the end of the day, those buildings are going to be rebuilt. And somebody's going to make money out of it. So you don't want them to do it, then don't encourage war.
Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Opa, thank you for talking to us at this time.
Well, thank you.